Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. I'm at Akatar Starfall mug today. Today's video is going to be all about tropes, so it's going to be a little bit of like trope recommendations, but also tropes that I hate. So tropes that I love and tropes that I hate. And then instead of just talking about the tropes themselves, I also kind of want to give you examples of it in a book that I've read. And it might be a book that I've read a long time ago that I thought did the trope really well, or it might be a book that I've read recently. But either way, I'm going to try to have an example of the tropes in question in a book that I've read. So let's just get into it. I'm going to start with the tropes that I love. And I think this is technically considered a micro trope, but I just consider it a trope. And that is the one bed trope. This is where, for whatever reason, two characters have to sleep in the same bed. Whether it's like they're on the run and there's only one room left, what have you. It's just always been one of my favorite tropes because I've always enjoyed the tension that comes with that, but also the frustration. So sometimes it's like, no, this is the worst possible thing that could happen to me and I'm so mad and I hate you and this is the worst situation. And I feel like either way, it brings this like plot device and tension, frustration, aggravation. There's something about it that heightens your reading experience and makes it more fun because it's dramatic, right? So a lot of times when things like that happen, your interest is more piqued because there's some sort of resolution that has to occur. Just with a lot of tropes and a lot of reasons people like to read is because there's a problem and then it has a resolution and you want to know how the problem gets solved. But that in particular is a trope that I found that I really, really like. And a book that I think did this really well and one that I still think about today, even though I've read a lot of books that have this and I've enjoyed them, and I just kind of feel like you can't even talk about this trope without mentioning A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is kind of a thick book. It's a lot going on, but I do think she utilized this trope well. And I did love this book. This is my favorite book of the series, as it is for most people. I just like the frustration of like, we don't want to be in this situation, or what do we do? How do we conduct ourselves? This is going to just be uncomfortable for everyone involved. To then maybe being something else. How do you handle that? I just like stuff like that. Or when they're suddenly like hiding from an enemy or just all kinds of things. I just like it, okay? So this one always comes to mind for this trope and I really like it. The next trope is the chosen one trope. I know this is a little bit of a hot take. I feel like people really like this trope or really hate it. Or maybe a lot of people don't like it, but I really love the chosen one trope. I love following the character that's the chosen one, especially if they're like reluctant or they don't know about any special abilities they have or they're not special at all. I love that they are thrust into the position of being the chosen one and having to save the world or save the environment or whatever's going on around them because it's difficult. There's things in life that get thrown at you that are really, really hard and you never asked for them and you never wanted to have to like rise to the occasion or fight through it. And that can come across in a lot of different ways. Some characters are like excited to be the chosen one. Some of them are sad because a lot of the time that comes with a lot of burdens and tragedy. Some of them are really angsty and really resistant to it. Some of them hate it. I feel like that can go a lot of different ways, but I've always really enjoyed the chosen one trope. I think it's because I secretly want to be a chosen one. But this could be so many books. So many books. Harry Potter, like Aragon, like so many books. But the one that came to mind for me immediately was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I think mostly because, especially if you've read the whole trilogy, this really is a reluctant chosen one, a reluctant hero, which is another trope, but this is a chosen one trope where it's like, there's only one. It's not like you're just the best or you've been put in this situation. It's like you have an ability no one else has. You are the one. And you hate that. And it's caused a lot of problems for you and you just want to live a simple life, but you can't because you have this like insane responsibility to your people. Because she is the sun summoner in this series, in the Grisha trilogy, there are very like select things you can be with magic. So you can be a corporealky, a corporealky, which is like heartrenders or healers. You can be an etherealky, which is squallers, inferni, or tide makers, like fire, wind, water. Materialkies, which are Duras and Alchemite, those are kind of like the building and scientific kind of things. Then there's one Darkling who has shadow magic, and then there's one Sun Summoner who is Alina. And I liked that about this because she has to rise to the occasion, and she hates it, and she truly just wants to have like the simplest life, but she can't because the entire like political environment and war all hinge around her, and this huge like rift in the fold that's this like shadowy mass that divides these cities. So this one for sure comes to mind, The Chosen One, and I've always really enjoyed this trope. Which is funny because I feel like I've heard people talk about The Chosen One and they're just like, ugh, another one, but I love that. Even like The Trials of Morgan Crow, I just like Chosen One. Another trope that I really, really like is enemies to lovers. No surprise here. With some of the fantasy romance I read, I like that it's tension. I don't like it when it's like, I don't like you and you bullied me once growing up and that's our enemies to lovers. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like true enemies hate each other, want to kill each other, maybe will kill each other, or maybe it's not that aggressive, but they're just enemies on opposite sides and they have nothing in common, and they perceive that all of their morals are separate, like all of that, but then they find some common ground and it transitions from there. I really like that trope because I think it also highlights the ability to see people not as perceptions of what you think that they believe and deciding you hate them because of that, deciding you hate them for whatever reason that you think you clash on, and instead having to dive deeper in that and see them as a person, like with heart and feelings, and maybe their intentions aren't all bad. I like the dynamic of that, and I think it's really important to see that it can grow into something else, whether it's friendship or not. But in this case, it's usually not. Sometimes in this trope or case, it's not even like they resolve all their issues. It's like enemies to lovers, but then they realize that they're enemies, or then they realize what the other person is, and then it causes this whole other rift to happen. And I just really like it. I think part of the reason you like it is because it's dramatic and it holds a lot of tension, it holds a lot of like moving the plot forward, it holds a lot of intrigue, and like your heart elevates and you're excited. I like stories that are more fast-paced, but even then I want the story to be captivating, and I want there to be excitement and things going on, and I think that's why I like this trope, is because there's always underlying tension and resolutions that have to happen. So one of the examples I have for this is Silver Cloak by L.K. Stephen. I love this book, and it is kind of an enemies to lovers book in a way. I mean, it definitely is, but if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. And the main character is trying to be a silver cloak, which is basically like a detective, a police officer kind of thing, and they're mages, so they have magic with their wands. And she is training to be a silver cloak, but then something happens, something goes wrong, and instead they offer her this position to go undercover to take down the blood moons. And in doing so, she gets to know the blood moons, one of which is the like kingpin's son that's around her age, and things go from there. And she's still undercover, so it's just a lot of crazy stuff that happens in this world, and this is an amazing, amazing book. I have no idea how it's so good. I made John read it, and he loved it also. It's an amazing book. But this one definitely utilizes that, as well as Alchemized by Sin-Lin Yu. This one utilizes the trope in kind of a different way, because this is more flashback. So you start the book, and part 1 is kind of where you are today. Part 2 is flashbacks, and part 3 is back to modern time. So this is kind of an interesting format of it, but this also utilizes that trope in a really, really interesting way, because they are enemies, but also they don't really fit in with their team, if that makes sense. I think that would make sense if you've read it. But yeah, I think this trope just can be very captivating and very enthralling, and you feel for the characters because of the hard situation that they're in, and you just want to root for them individually. Yeah. So this one for sure. Another trope that I absolutely love, that I think is probably one of my top tropes ever, is Morally Grey. Now, for this one, I chose Vicious by V.E. Schwab, because for Morally Grey, I feel like the characters have to have a lot of decisions they're making, And they have to be in just such situations that they're always choosing, like, to survive or protect themselves, protect others. Like, there's just so many ways that it can go. But the idea is that they will not let a moral choice stand in the way of doing what they need to do or accomplishing what they want to accomplish. They operate outside of the usual bounds of, like, good and evil. They're not absolute good, they're not absolute evil. They kind of are in the middle, because they're not just like an evil warlord, horrible, vindictive person, but they're also not going to just follow a moral code for the sake of it. They're going to blur the lines, and they're going to go outside of the boundaries. And I find those characters so compelling and interesting. There's just something about it in my brain that I'm like, this is so interesting and cool, and I want to know more, and I'm kind of rooting for you. And I just get it. I don't know. It's so interesting, and I love it so much. It's just one of those things where it's just like you have a favorite and you're not necessarily sure why, but you do, and it's this. And I chose Vicious because I would say that, if not all, almost every character in this book is morally gray. They all face decisions or make decisions or have these beliefs or thought processes that lean morally gray. They make bad choices, they make interesting choices, they make scary choices, they make choices that are for survival, they make choices that will hurt other people, and it may be for their gain or not. Also a revenge story, because you're following two best friends who were best friends in college, and you see how their friendship deteriorates to modern day. It's like a lot of flashing back and forth in different timelines. They were best friends in college, and now they're enemies, and they're trying to kill each other. You get told that story as you go. This is my favorite book of all time, as I think I've mentioned already, but I love it. Everyone in this book is messed up. Everyone is morally gray. Everyone has agendas. Everyone has trauma. Everyone has things that are just going on with them or messed up with them. And it's so, so good. There are, like, no good men in this game, kind of a thing. I really like it. I love that trope so much, and I have to showcase this book when I talk about it because it's my favorite. The last trope I'm going to talk about for the love category is trials or competitions. I really, really like a book where a main character, willingly or unwillingly, is entered into trials or a competition, and they have to survive, or they have to beat, like, everyone else. I usually like it if it's a survival type of thing, but I love competition trials. I just love it so much. There's something about it, like them having to fight their way out of an arena, or them having to be the one that the prince picks, like, in a dangerous way and not just like a frivolous way. I love it. I'm pretty competitive, so that might be why, but I just love the character having to fight, having to survive. Maybe they're not even really good at it, but they're just surviving. Whether it's like a death tournament or just a skills tournament or fighting or you're not supposed to survive. I just love it so much. And my copy is buried right now, so I can't get it, but I feel like I would be remiss if I did not use the Hunger Games for this trope, because this is one of the first ones that I really read where I would say this was the forefront of the plot, because it's a killing tournament. All the kids that are chosen are sent into this death match, and the one that survives and everyone else is dead wins. And it's sad, but it's so compelling. And there's lots of just, like, commentary in the book, and just, like, it's a, like, phenomenon for a reason. It's, like, it's, like, wildly successful, worldwide bestseller. The movies do amazing. They are amazing. Like, there's a reason. There's a reason for that. But one of the things in it is these trial competition elements, and I really enjoy it, which sounds sadistic when you're talking about the Hunger Games, but, you know. Another one that I think utilizes this trope that I've loved is Heir of Storms by Lauren Hamilton Murray, and this is a little bit different because it's not a killing tournament. This is a competition to find out who the next rulers of the society will be, and they all use elemental magic. So the main character of this, she has water magic, even though she's kind of from a fire family, which is strange. She hasn't been able to tap into her magic, so she's kind of an anomaly. But when the emperor dies and they have to select a new ruling class, which is like the emperor and the court, there's an emblem on her palm that lights up in the water symbol, that tells her that she has to compete, and the story kind of goes from there, and she has to compete with all of the other 4 elements and elementals that are entered into this competition. And like I said, I gave this book 5 stars. I've loved this book. I love competitions. I love trials. So that's part of the reason I really enjoyed this, but also it's more of a battle of wits and a little bit of strength and some other things. Just in each trial individually, they're kind of different. But in theory, no one's dying. No one's trying to kill one another. So I did like this one as well. And let's talk about some tropes that I hate. And some of these, I'm going to be honest, some of these I'm going to have the example of a book that I actually do like that utilizes the trope that I don't mind. Because I tend to avoid books that have these tropes. So I haven't read a lot of them, I don't think. Some of them I do by accident. But the first one that I really hate is the resurrection trope. I hate it. I think if you're gonna go so far as to kill a character off, you have to just let that be permanent. In a lot of ways. If it's more of like a fake out, like they're not actually dead, you just thought they were, that's fine, that's dramatic and awful, and I don't think authors should do that either, but I get it. What I mean is that they actually died and then they come back to life. I hate that, and I'm not talking about Liam, he's probably the only exception I would have for this rule, but because like that stuff can happen, spiritual, ghosts, hallucinations, whatever, that stuff can happen. I'm just talking about straight up, like they died and now they're resurrected and they're alive again. I hate it because I think it creates drama for no reason, and it's almost like a cop-out of the drama. Like if you want people's hearts to be broken over this character's death, then let them stay dead. Don't play with our emotions like that. It's silly. So I really hate that. But a book that does use this that I actually like, it's like the only instance that I've liked this trope, is The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I love Gandalf. He's my favorite character. I was very upset when Gandalf died. And when he came back, I was very excited. But I also think that makes so much more sense for Gandalf and the kind of character he is, and he's a wizard, which is like a different race. It makes so much more sense. It's the only instance where I have enjoyed the resurrection trope. Otherwise, it's stupid and don't do it. And I know that other people like it, and that's fine, but I don't. It irks me. Another trope that I really hate is the miscommunication trope, and I feel like this isn't a hot take. I feel like a lot of people dislike this. And it's unfortunately in many books, particularly contemporary romance books, because what kind of plot device do you want to have to divide the characters in a modern day world where everyone's like an okay person? Miscommunication. I understand why they use it, but I'm like, could they just like kill somebody? I'm in such the fantasy world that when I read contemporary romance and I'm like, yeah, but you could have just straight up told them. You could have just been honest. You could have like not beat around the bush and just like, you could have not assumed. There's just so many ways to avoid it that I think that's why it's so frustrating. It's like, you just communicate, just talk to each other. That's all you have to do, and then this whole thing would have been cleared up in like 2 seconds. But instead, you like broke up, and now you're back together, and it's like halfway through the book, more than halfway through the book. It's just nonsense, if you ask me. But I think a book that does use this trope is Secret Nights and Northern Lights by Megan Oliver. I did really enjoy this book. I liked a lot of it, but there was a frustration for me when I was reading it, and it's just so tiresome of getting the miscommunication trope of them being like, I need to tell you something, but then like in this situation something happens where they get interrupted and they're like, oh, what did you need to tell me? And they're like, oh, nothing, it can wait. And then it blows up and becomes this huge thing that was so easily avoidable. That's so frustrating. This happens in this book. So I really enjoyed the book. I gave it 4.5 stars. Or no, I gave it 4 stars. But it's just like, oh my gosh. I think it's just because the problems are so easily avoidable is why it irks me so much. But so while I did enjoy this book, the trope drove me insane. If anybody likes the tropes that I hate, I would be curious to know your thoughts. It might upset me, but I'm kind of curious. Another trope that I hate, possibly the most, this might be the worst hated one actually, is surprise pregnancies. Keep that out of every book that I read. If I know that it's in there, I will not read it. I hate it. It's the worst. No one needs to be surprised with that in a book. Absolutely not. It needs to be like on the forefront. I hate it so much. And I want to talk about a book that has it in it, but I'm kind of afraid it's a big spoiler for people. I'm sure it's already been spoiled for a lot of you, but if you don't want any spoilers at all, maybe don't continue this clip. But book that has that. And it's so frustrating the way it's done. I even feel like had it been handled a different way in the book, I might not have hated it as much. But I really hated it. I like the book. Did not like that. It's so frustrating, especially the characters it happens to and what is unraveled because of that and how frustrating the situation is and how dire it is. It could have all been avoided. I hated it. I hated that was like a big, huge, dramatic thing where people were gonna die. It was so frustrating. And then for it to just be resolved the way it was, I hated it. Disliked it a lot. The rest of the book, fine. That part made me want to punch somebody. And again, I haven't read a lot of these tropes because I hate them, especially this one. I don't read these types of books. The next trope that I really hate is unresolved endings. Endings where it's like the book ends, but you don't actually know what happens to the characters. You don't actually know how the story wraps up. You don't really know what happened. And I don't mean that in an ambiguous way where it's like it led off in like a way that it could continue. I'm saying like you straight up just don't know. It's one of the most infuriating things an author can do to someone, especially if the book is confusing or just like you're waiting for some sort of resolution to occur and then it just never does. You're like, what have I been reading and why? I was actually trying to think of a book that does this. There's several that I know this has happened to me too, but I was trying to think specifically of one. And then I remembered this book. This is probably the worst book I've ever read. But The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I hated this book with a fiery passion. Like I said, the worst book I've ever read. So annoying. Really hated it. And it's so confusing and the plot goes nowhere. You don't even know what the plot is. You're just like floating on this sea of confusion and then nothing is resolved and then the book ends and you're like, I couldn't tell you what happened or explain to you what that book was about if I tried. So let alone the rest of the book. It also doesn't have a resolved ending and you're just kind of like floating in the abyss of just wondering if all of that was an acid trip. And that makes me so angry. Don't like that trope. Another one, the last one that I will talk about that I hate, is the amnesia trope. I think that one of the reasons that I dislike this one is because it also feels like a cop-out trope. It feels like I don't know how to make this super dramatic and crazy and to have like a big resolution at the end, so we'll just have the character lose their memories. That sounds good. There are plenty of other things we could have chosen. Many other things we could have chosen. I dislike that so much. One of the books that came to mind for this that I actually don't have, I unhauled them, is the Serpent and Dove trilogy. One of the books utilizes this trope, and it's so unbelievably frustrating. Again, because like you've just spent, I think it's in the third book, you've spent 2 books of this trilogy building up this story and these problems and these situations for then the character to just forget everything. And then you have to somehow fix the whole problem that the plot's been building to, and now fix the memory issue. It's so frustrating. I hate it. Another one that, like, of the books I really loved, but, like, the trilogy I like, the author I love, but still utilizing the trope that I hate is so frustrating. So it's like, even though I loved the book, you utilize the trope that I hated, and I was like, dang it, nabbit. To be honest, I can't really remember. I'm pretty sure it's in the second book, and that's The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. I think it's at the very freaking end of the book, you realize that the character lost their memories, and you're just like, after all of this pain and trauma and story building and possible developments, now the character is going to lose their memory in a world that's super whimsical and magical and everything's just like hunky-dory unicorns and danger, and then suddenly no memories. It makes me want to throw something against the wall. It's so frustrating. And again, it's just because like, oh, well, maybe if they just don't wake up with their memories, maybe that'll be how the tension is brought into the story. No. Have them be injured. Have something else happen. Literally anything else besides resurrection and pregnancy and miscommunication. Their memories, it's just so sad and annoying and devastating, and then just like a cop-out. So I really hate that one. But like I said, I really love the Once Upon a Broken Heart series and the Caraval series, so it's not like I would tell you never to read it, but it does utilize a trope that I hate. And it's kind of a weird situation when you are reading a book or series or author you really love, and you're really enjoying the book and you really like the series, but then they utilize a trope and it's like, ugh, that like brought my enjoyment down just a little bit, but I still really love it. That was kind of how that one was. Serpent and Dove, not so much. It kind of like killed the rest of the series for me. It was so frustrating. So yeah. Those are all of the tropes that I hated and loved. Want to give me your most favorite trope and your least favorite trope? I would love to know. Please leave it in a comment down below. But as for now, that is it for today's video. Please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.